Chapter 21. Alex grabbed the little girl and pulled her to him, wrapping her in his arms. She screamed, her little voice whisked away by the air rushing past them. The ground sped toward the pair. Alex jerked his head back, forcing his body to follow so he could be feet first. He hit the ground a second later with a jarring thud. Alex! Hands touched his arms. Alex willed his legs to hold. He blinked to chase away the daze from the abrupt landing and recognized Officer Dune. The officer slipped his hands beneath Alex's and took the little girl from him. "What is going on?" Officer Dune demanded. "Drogon's a madman," Alex replied. He turned to go back inside the hospital. "Don't go back in there," Officer Dune said. "The whole place is on fire. We've taken out the men we can in order to rescue patients. The hospital is going to collapse." "I've got to go," Alex replied. His eyes burned. "Drogon may have just shot one of my close friends." He ducked back through the hospital doors. Flames were everywhere. A fireman rushed past with a boy in his arms. Several others were busy helping patients out the back door where the flames had less of a hold. Alex saw Jays helping two officers pushing wheelchairs. It was hard to run in the opposite direction. His instincts screamed for him to join Jays in getting patients out of the hospital. Jays was his pack mate, his father figure. To leave the alpha and the rest of the pack felt completely against everything he had been raised to do. But Cherish, if she was still alive, and other helpless humans were on the fourth floor with Drogon, who was acting insane. Alex was the only one they would let back up. He had saved the child. Maybe he could do something else to rescue the others. Alex took the stairs 4 at a time. The elevators were down and he had to hold to the wall several times to avoid hindering the descent of patients. Officers, doctors, and nurses. Firefighters hosed down the second floor from the street, but it was clear that Drogon had set the fire to do the most devastation possible. Officer Dune was right. The building would collapse. Alex burst through the door to the 4th floor only to find it empty. He looked around, his heart racing. He hadn't passed any of Drogon's men on the way, which meant they only had one direction to go. He ran to the stairs and continued up. The door to the roof was open. Alex rushed out in time to see one helicopter leave. He could make out the forms of the humans and the news team crammed into the chopper. A second helicopter sat on the roof with its blades spinning. "Get in, Alex," Drogon called from inside it. Alex knew the helicopter would be a death trap. It was the last place he wanted to go. His heart slowed when Drogon shoved Cherish forward. Tears streamed down her cheeks as Drogon pressed a gun to her head. Relief filled Alex that Cherish was still alive. He didn't know how to save her, but he vowed to do anything to keep her from harm. "Get in," Drogon said, his voice low and mismatched eyes burning into Alex's. Alex crossed the roof to the helicopter and climbed inside. "In there," Drogon said. Alex looked behind him. A cage stood where one of the seats should have been. The bars were thick and the door was open. Drogon pressed the gun harder against Cherish's head and she gave a small cry of pain. "Get in, Alex," Drogon commanded in a growl. Alex stepped inside the cage and one of Drogon's men slammed it shut. Alex set a hand on a bar. He winced at the sudden burning sensation and pulled his hand back. A glance at his palm showed red welts already forming on the skin. "Liquid silver," Drogon said. "Something my father used to use." His voice twisted slightly. He was a genius when it came to inventive ways to torture werewolves. The helicopter began to lift off the roof. Alex knew if Cherish stayed on the chopper, there was no way Drogon would let her live. On instinct, Alex grabbed Drogon's arm and yanked him forward. The extremist's face touched the bar. He yelled in pain and jerked back. Drogon bumped into Cherish, pushing her out of the helicopter. She landed on the roof a few feet below. "Run, Cherish," Alex yelled. Cherish climbed to her feet and took off for the door to the hospital. His 2 guards moved to jump out after her. "Leave her," Drogon said, clutching his face. "Get us out of here." The helicopter rose into the air. Alex studied his half-brother in silence for a few minutes. "How long have you known you were a werewolf?" he asked, his eyes on Drogon's face. Drogon lowered his hand, revealing an angry burn down his cheek. Alex thought the extremist wasn't going to reply, but after a minute he said, "Not long." The disgust in his voice was clear. "I phased after you killed Dad." His face twisted. It gave a form to my rage. I went on a killing rampage. Felt so good tearing the throats out of humans. I'm so strong, so bloodthirsty. Alex remembered Trent mentioning them trying to track down a werewolf who was killing humans. Why are you working so hard to wipe werewolves from this nation when you are one? Drogon reached for Alex's throat, but pulled back before clearing the bars. Werewolves are savage, disgusting creatures driven by animal instincts and basic laws of survival. His lips twisted in an ugly snarl. I deserve to die. As much as you. Just for being what you are? Alex asked. Werewolves killed my mother, Drogon replied. They tore her apart in front of me. I was 4 and I couldn't stop them. When father found us, he vowed to wipe all werewolves from the earth. It all fell into place. Even his brothers, Alex said. Especially his brothers. Drogon's hands clenched into fists. They're the reason she was killed. They were trying to rehabilitate the beasts and they turned on us. His voice lowered. Now I'm one of them. It's in your blood, Alex said. Drogon glared at him. So I'll purge my lineage from the earth. But first I have something for you to do. He nodded at his men. One of the guards ran a scanner down Alex's body as the helicopter flew above the buildings. It beeped at the sleeve of the new hoodie Trent had made for him. At Drogon's motion, the guard cut the sleeve from the shirt. The 7 on. The sleeve tore away to reveal the 7 tattoo on Alex's arm. Drogon crossed his arms and regarded Alex levelly. I knew Jet. Alex refused to be baited. Drogon ignored his silence and continued. Dad showed me the video of when Jet killed his men. He leaned closer to Alex. He killed hundreds of men with nothing more than his bare hands. He protected hundreds of werewolves doing so, Alex replied, unable to stay silent. What do you think they'd say? Drogon asked. What would the humans you revere so much say if they saw Jet tearing other humans apart? I'm going to air the video so your so-called beloved brother is known for what he really is, a murderer. Rage flooded Alex's body so sharp he could barely breathe. Blue surged through his vision. He morphed and punched the bars of the cage. They bent outward, giving him room to step through. Drogon scrambled to the side. One of his guards aimed a gun. Alex ducked and the bullet struck the back of the pilot's chair. The helicopter tipped sharply forward. A guard screamed and fell out the side of the chopper. The ground rushed toward them. One of the other men reached for the controls, but there wasn't enough time to right the helicopter. Alex braced himself and the helicopter slammed into the ground. Pain forced the fog from Alex's mind. He blinked and tried to move. Something pinned him down. He lifted his head and stared at the bar that pierced through his stomach. He could feel the burning of the liquid silver that coated the bar along with blood running down his side. Something dripped in his eyes. He lifted a hand and found a gash on his forehead. Instinct made him search his surroundings. The helicopter had crashed in the middle of a road. Black vehicles were surrounding it. Drogon was nowhere to be seen. For a brief moment, Alex hoped he would see Agent Sullivan from the Global Protection Agency step out of one of the cars, but instead Drogon's men rushed out with guns pointed at Alex. He let his head fall back and welcomed the rush of darkness. Chapter 22. What do you think he means by collateral you can't deny? One of the news crew asked Alex when they were left alone that night. I don't think I want to know, Alex replied. He tried to find a comfortable position lying on the floor of his cage, but the pain in his stomach made it impossible. Are you okay? The mother of the little girl he had rescued asked. I'll be better when I get you guys out of here, Alex said, keeping his answer vague on purpose. The amount of blood that puddled on the floor around him bothered him more than he wanted to let on. If he wasn't careful, he wouldn't be around to save them. Keep pressure on it, another woman said. At Alex's questioning look, she explained. I'm a nurse from the hospital. You need to keep pressure on it to slow the blood flow. If you can slow it enough, the wound can try to clot. Thanks, Alex replied, touched that she cared enough to give advice. He put a hand on the bandage and pushed. The pressure hurt enough that he had to grit his teeth to keep any sound from escaping at the pain. What if the collateral is like he said, enough to keep you doing what he wants? A man from the group asked in a tight voice filled with fear. Alex forced himself to sit up and meet their gazes. He read on several faces that the same fear occupied their thoughts. pained him to see it. I'm not going to kill you. But what if you have to? The man pressed. Alex let out a slow breath. He realized the red light from the camera was on, and the cameraman was recording the conversation. He searched for a way to reassure them. You know I'm the demon of Grayton, right? He asked. A few of them nodded. Alex tipped his head to the side. Do you know why I saved those girls from the gangs? You like to fight, someone guessed. A few of the others gave small laughs in return as though they needed to do something to stay sane. Alex smiled. I do like to fight. A few more smiles answered his. But that's not it. His smile faltered. Drogon's father, the general, killed a friend of mine. We were really close. He reached up his free hand and rubbed his eyes. He shot her before I could save her. I tried to do everything I could, but it wasn't enough. And you could save those girls, an older man said gently. Alex nodded without looking at them. I could make a difference. If at least one girl was saved from fear and pain, perhaps Cleo would know that I tried. Maybe their living would make her death mean something. You helped so many of them, the mother of the child said. I'm sure she would be proud of you. I hope so, Alex replied. He looked up at them. If it comes down to my life, or yours, you have my word that I would rather die than let you do so for Drogon's cause. Silence filled the room. It was broken by the mother's voice a few minutes later. How old are you, Alex? Alex looked at her, curious as to why she was asking. 17. Drogon said he killed your parents. Alex nodded. When I was 8. The mother gave him a warm smile. They would be proud of you. He refused to let his emotions surface at her words. He knew Drogon might be watching on cameras, and refused to give the extremists any satisfaction. Thank you, he said quietly. Jenkins threw open the door. No more talking, he yelled. Alex settled slowly onto his back. The position hurt too much, forcing him onto his side. He kept pressure on the wound, unable to sleep for fear that his hand would fall away and he would bleed to death without regaining consciousness. Drogon and Jenkins walked back into the room a few hours later. We've had a development, Drogon said. Alex stood up gingerly, worried about what the extremist's tone implied. Jenkins' phone rang and he answered it. Cassie is here, the man reported to Drogon. Alex's legs felt weak. He reached for the bars to steady himself and remembered at the last moment that they were coated in liquid silver. His stomach hurt. He wanted more than anything to curl up in a corner and forget all that was happening. Instead, he stared at the door, terrified that the footsteps he heard on the stairs would bring his sister into the living nightmare he experienced. Instead, Ciale stepped into view with half a dozen of Drogon's guards around her. She was running outside the academy walls, a guard answered at Drogon's questioning. We picked her off without a problem. Good work. Drogon grabbed Ciale's arm and led her to the cage. She looked tired and her face was pale, but she locked eyes with Alex and held his gaze. Now do you see why you'll comply with my plan? Drogon asked with cruel glee. On his face, Jace wouldn't save his mother by killing the werewolves, but I have a feeling you'll kill humans to rescue your twin sister. Alex couldn't speak. He glanced back and found the news team and humans watching them. Several of the humans had expressions of defeat as if they knew Drogon had the upper hand. The cameraman who recorded what was happening had tears in his eyes. Alex wondered if he had a wife and children back in Grayton. Jenkins' cell phone rang again. He answered, and after a moment he lowered the phone. We have a problem. Not now, Drogon replied with irritation. I'm in the middle of forced manslaughter. There's a problem with the northern factory, Jenkins said. The muscle beside Drogon's right eye twitched. What problem? The mutants have gotten out. They've overrun the top floor. Crota has the place on lockdown. Drogon's jaw clenched and for a moment it looked as though he would shoot Jenkins. Instead, he motioned for a guard to unlock Alex's cage. When Alex stepped forward, 6 guns aimed at his head. He stopped and Ciale was thrown into the cage. Drogon held out his hand for Jenkins' cell phone. If anyone does anything, execute the humans, the extremist leader said. He stormed out of the room and slammed the door shut behind him. Ciale hugged Alex tight. He winced at the pressure against his stomach. What's going? Ciale gasped when she stepped back and saw the blood-soaked bandages across Alex's stomach. It's the least of our concerns right now, Alex said. Not if you're bleeding to death, Ciale replied. Let me see. Alex put a hand over it. The bandages squished beneath his touch. I was impaled by a bar coated in liquid silver. There must be enough in the wound to keep it from healing. He forced his voice to remain steady. I think this bandage is all that keeps me from bleeding out. Ciale's eyes brightened with tears. She helped him to a sitting position on the floor. He put an arm around her shoulders and asked too quietly for the human's ears. What are you doing here and why does he think you're Cassie? She whispered in reply. There were extremists in the forest. I knew they were searching for your sister. I didn't want them to find her. I told Trent I was up to and he helped me. Alex stared at her. He helped you get captured? She gave him a small smile. I didn't give him a choice. I told him my plan and said that he could either help me or be an accomplice to my death if I go on by myself. You drive a hard bargain. You have no idea, she said. So I went running through the forest careful to have him call me Cassie before I left. It didn't take them long to pick me up. So what's the plan? They would have checked you for tracking chips before bringing you here. Alex shook his head. How can you put yourself in danger like this? Because you're not going to die at the hands of a crazy lunatic, she replied. Alex gave a small smile. How are you planning to prevent that? Trent got Brock to program the drone to recognize my heat signature. That made Alex sit up straighter despite the pain in his stomach. So they can follow it here. Ciale nodded. Security's tight, so they're going to make their own entrance. They're going to bomb this place? Ciale smiled. Exactly. And it recognizes your heat signature. So they know what side of the building not to blow up, she finished. Alex wanted to pull Ciale close and kiss her, remembering only at the last minute that Drogon was no doubt watching them on the cameras and such a display would convince him that Cassie wasn't Alex's sister. Stop talking, Jenkins said, walking to the bars. His eyes narrowed and he aimed his gun toward the humans. Maybe I'll pick one or two of them off just to keep you in line. The humans cowered away from the gun, but were kept from moving very far by the chains. Don't do it, Jenkins, Alex said, rising to his feet. Drogon will be angry if you kill the hostages. Jenkins smiled. I'll say you tried to escape. Alex looked around quickly for anything he could use to stop the man from shooting the humans, but there was nothing within reach of the cage. Jenkins! He yelled as the man's finger tightened on the trigger. An explosion shook the building, throwing everyone to the floor. Walls cracked, and pieces of the ceiling fell. A crack ran near the humans and their chain pulled free. One side of the cage was smashed. Guards ran for the werewolves, but Alex shoved his way through, careful to keep Ciale behind him where the guards couldn't reach her. Kill the humans, Jenkins yelled. I've got the werewolves. Guns were lifted. Blue-tinged rage flooded through Alex. He crossed the floor in a heartbeat. His claws found one guard, then another. He spun and swiped across the gun hand of a third, then buried his fist deep in the man's stomach. He threw the guard into two others. Stop! Jenkins barked. Alex glanced back and found the man with a gun pointed directly at Ciale. The ground shook beneath his feet from the explosion. Dust filled the air. Every beat of Alex's heart sounded loud in his ears. He couldn't reach the man. Before he shot Ciale, Alex had left her alone, vulnerable like he had promised he never would. A shot rang out. Jenkins jerked, and when he squeezed the trigger and the bullet went wide, missing the werewolf. Ciale punched him in the throat, then the stomach. She followed with a backhand across to the man's jaw that spun him halfway around. Alex was there to meet him. He slashed Jenkins' throat, followed by his stomach. Jenkins took 2 steps back, then collapsed to the floor. Ciale, Alex said, his voice deep and gruff from morphing. Protect the humans, Ciale replied. I'm fine. Alex glanced back to see the remaining guards running for the humans. He grabbed a bar from the cage as he ran past. He swung it and took down 3 guards. Another swipe caught the last 2 before they could reach the hostages. The surge of energy had cost Alex. His body morphed back to normal. His mind registered that his hand was burning, and he let the bar fall to the ground. He rubbed his hand on his pants in an attempt to wipe away the liquid silver, That coated it. Are you okay? Ciale asked. Alex nodded, seeing the image of Jenkins almost shooting her again in his mind. The sound of a gun falling to the floor caught his attention. He looked over his shoulder to see the mother of the girl he had saved step away from the gun she had dropped. You saved Ciale, he said, his thoughts racing as he tried to come to terms with what had happened. You saved my daughter, she replied. Thank you. Something hit against the door. Alex moved so that he was between the door, the humans, and Ciale. His hands clenched into fists. A bang sounded and the door blew inward. Jay stood in the cloud of smoke. Relief filled the dean's eyes when he saw Alex and Ciale. Let's get you guys out of here, he said. Chapter 23. Drogon's gone, Chet announced as soon as they cleared the door. No, Alex said. He shouldered past the Alpha and hurried down the hall. Alex, wait, Ciale called. Stay here, Alex replied. He forced his body to morph. As he ran down the hall, he realized it was the first time he had been able to make himself morph. His strength was failing with the blood loss. He could feel it as he made his way around debris, following Drogon's scent. Footsteps ran after him. A glance back showed Jay's catching up. I can't let him go, Alex called, his voice thick and low. He's taken too much from me. He ducked out of a hole in the wall where Drogon's scent fled. Forest, touched with spring, took up the backside of Drogon's base. Alex's keen ears picked up the sound of a helicopter. He crashed through the trees, and the impartial side of him wondered just how many choppers the extremist had at his command. Jay's ghosted beside him, the dean's footsteps soundless compared to Alex's. Brute smashing through small stands of trees and bushes. He appreciated that. Jay's didn't try to stop him. They reached a clearing just as the helicopter rose into the air. Drogon grinned down at them, his mismatched eyes wild and leering. No, Alex growled. He grabbed a trunk that looked like it had been struck by lightning and tore it from the ground. With a roar, he threw it as hard as he could. Drogon's eyes widened when the tree hit the helicopter blades. Sparks flew, then flames. The helicopter careened toward the ground, disappeared beneath the trees. The impact shook the forest floor. Jays and Alex exchanged a look and took off running. Smoke billowed from the aircraft. It had torn up trees and lay on its side. Alex, be careful, Jays called. Alex ignored the flames and jumped onto the side of the helicopter. He glanced at the slain pilot and searched the back seat. Drogon's gone, he told Jays, jumping back to the ground. His knees buckled. Jays caught his arm, steadying him as the morph faded, leaving him in his human form. Alex pressed a hand to his stomach, trying to staunch the sticky blood that coated the wound. The bandages had fallen off somewhere in his crazed run. He could feel the raw edges of the wound where the silver coated, keeping it open. An impression in the dirt caught Alex's attention. He dropped to his knees. Next to it. That's a wolf print, Jay said, crouching beside Alex. Alex nodded. Drogon's a werewolf. At the dean's stare, Alex continued. He said he phased after I killed his father. He swallowed, then corrected. I mean our father. Jays put a hand on his shoulder. The general was not your father. Yes, he was. Alex, look at me, Jays insisted. When Alex finally complied, the dean's gaze was adamant. The general may have contributed to you having life, but that's all. He didn't raise you, and there is nothing in you that is of him. You aren't Jared, and you aren't Drogon. Drogon killed your parents. Jays blinked, his eyes damp. Will and Mindy were your real parents. They were wonderful people, full of the same love and understanding that I see in you. You have Jet's stubbornness. He could never turn away from those who needed his help and strength. He gave everything to save us. Jay's voice choked. Off. Alex wiped his eyes with the back of his arm. Drogon deserves to die. Jays nodded. I've been where you are. When Mason killed my father, I did everything I could to avenge his death. And you killed him, Alex said quietly. Jay's eyes tightened as memories of the past darkened his gaze. I had a hand in his death. I thought it would help me feel better. Did it? Jays gave him a straight look. No, because the hole was still there. I still missed my father. Mason's death didn't do anything to help it go away. My father was gone and nothing could bring him back. But at least Mason couldn't hurt anyone else. Jays nodded. Yes. In that there was justice. Drogon has hurt far too many people. We will make sure he pays. Then go after him, Alex said, pointed to the tracks in the rich earth. Jace gave him a fatherly smile. And leave you to bleed out here in the dirt? No way. There will be time to go after Drogon later. We need to get you to the hospital. He ducked under Alex's arm and was helping him stand when a growl rumbled through the forest. Alex saw Drogon at the edge of the clearing. He was in wolf form and his coat was black. Drogon's an alpha, Alex said quietly. Jace was about to reply when beasts stepped from the forest on either side of Drogon. There were at least a dozen of them. They were misshapen and hulking. Huge wolves with patchy fur, human-shaped heads and teeth sticking out in all directions. Their muscles were colossal and their arms ended in wicked-looking black claws. One in particular towered above the rest. It had black patchy fur and a huge scar that tore through one ear and an eye. What are they? Alex asked. He leaned against a tree, his strength waning. He had pushed his body too hard with the last run and throwing the tree. I think they were trying to create something like you, Jace replied. The mutants, Alex said. At Jace's quick look he explained. Jenkins told Drogon that the mutants were out of control. We need to get back to the others, Jace said, his voice tight as the mutants advanced on either side of Drogon. Alex shook his head. He could barely stay standing. Blood pooled beneath his fingers and dripped to the forest floor. I don't think I can make it. I'll distract them. You go. Jace tore off his shirt and phased. He raised his muzzle to the morning sky and let out a howl that reverberated through the trees. The great black wolf then turned his attention to Drogon and the mutants. He growled, flattening his ears against his skull. A shudder ran down Alex's spine at the sheer vehemence in the Dean's voice. Drogon gave a sharp bark and the mutants attacked. Even as an alpha it was clear the mutants were too many for Jace. He fought right and left, attempting to push them away from Alex. Alex tried to force his body to morph, but it refused. Spots flashed in his vision. He tried to keep his eyes open. A growl sounded directly in front of him. Alex looked up to see Drogon a few feet away. The black wolf bared his teeth in a snarl. He gathered his legs and leaped. Alex caught the wolf by the throat. The werewolf's claws scratched Alex's chest as he fought to keep the animal from latching onto his throat. Alex's arms shook as the alpha struggled to close the gap. Drogon's weight and strength forced him closer. Alex's heart skipped a beat. The wolf's hot breath brushed Alex's face as his teeth snapped shut inches from Alex's throat. One of the werewolf's front paws scraped down Alex's stomach and caught in his wound. Alex let out a yell of pain. A gray and white form struck Drogon's side so hard the wolf was thrown from Alex. Alex stared at Ciale in wolf form as she placed herself between Alex and Drogon. There was no way the little werewolf could defeat the alpha. Run, Alex said, his voice barely a whisper. Ciale growled at Drogon, ignoring Alex's request. Alex tried to stand, convinced he was about to see one more of his loved ones slain by Drogon, and this time it would be the love of his life. He couldn't phase or morph. His body refused to respond either way, but he could throw himself between Drogon and Ciale. Maybe it would give her a chance to get away. Alex stumbled forward, and suddenly more wolves were there. Cassian. Tennyson stood on Ciale's right, with Tareth and Trent on her left. Alex realized with a start that the gray and brown wolf next to Trent was Jordan. The impartial side of him noted that perhaps his advice had helped the couple. Two more alphas joined them. Jericho and Torrens' growls merged with the others. Chet and Dre appeared with Vance and Kanan close behind. The werewolves attacked the mutants with the force of a battering ram, pushing them away from Jace. Drogon took a step back, then another. The werewolf students from the academy fell back around Alex, protecting him. Drogon gave a low bark. The mutants stopped fighting and rejoined their leader. The alphas who had fought beside Jace watched them, their sides heaving and blood streaking their shoulders and chest. For a moment nobody moved. The mutants were strong, very strong. They attacked again. The alphas would be hard-pressed to hold them back. Drogon would be Alex's target. He stood, leaning heavily on the tree, his gaze locked on Drogon's. If the pack fought beside him and the professors distracted the mutants, they could reach the alpha. They might have a chance. As if Drogon reached the same conclusion, He gave another bark. The mutants around him faded back into the forest. Drogon was the last to leave. He glared at Alex, his mismatched eyes narrow and cold. He ducked beneath the trees and vanished with the others. Alex sank back to the ground, happy just to be sitting without mutants or alphas trying to tear him apart. Hey, Alex. It took most of Alex's strength just to open his eyes. He found the dean kneeling on the forest floor looking at him. Alex gave the dean a weak smile. Hey, Jace. Jay's eyebrows pulled together worriedly. Stay with me, okay? I'm not going anywhere, Alex promised. He leaned his head against the tree. A soft nose pushed against his arm. He lifted it and Ciale ducked underneath, letting him rest against her. That was crazy, you know, he told her. And they say I have a death wish. She snorted as if to say he still did. I guess as comfortable as sitting here is, we shouldn't wait for Drogon to get more of his mutants and come back. Alex took a stealing breath and tried to rise. Jace helped Alex to his feet and Vance took the position on Alex's other side. The huge werewolf carried most of Alex's weight as he made his way back to Drogon's building. The going was slow and every step hurt. By the time they made it to the vehicles, Alex was semi-conscious. Jace helped him inside the first SUV while the others left to phase. You do have a death wish, Jace said as he put new bandages over Alex's wound. The dean smiled. But so did I at your age. And no fear apparently. When I think back to the things we did, I wonder how I even survived. Yet here you are, Alex said, his words slurred together. Jace nodded, pushing the hair back from Alex's forehead in a fatherly gesture. And you two, we'll get through this together. Yeah, Alex said. He let his eyes close. Get some rest. We'll drive to the jet and get you to the academy. Meredith and Lyra are already on standby. Tell Mom I'm sorry I caused so much trouble, Alex said without opening his eyes. Jace chuckled. I'll tell her. I get to drive, Trent called. I'm driving, Mouse said from the driver's seat. Don't let Trent drive, Tareth said. We might all die. Have a little faith, Trent replied. There's no way I'm getting in a car with Trent driving, Torrin said. I'm driving, Mouse repeated. Boys. Ciale's voice cut through the haze in Alex's mind. He opened his eyes to see her climb into the SUV. You doing okay? She asked, her eyes filled with worry as she took a seat at Alex's side. Better now, he replied. It was true. With her next to him, his wound hurt less and his thoughts were clearer. He knew it could have been just that he was so enraptured with her that everything else was pushed into the background, but if that was the case, he would gladly stay by her side for the rest of his life. She took a rag from Jay's and began to wash Alex's face. He closed his eyes. The feeling of the clean dampness removing the sticky blood from his body was wonderful. Maybe I should get hurt, Jericho noted, climbing in the back. I'm sure Cherish would help, Alex said, glancing at the alpha. A faint blush ran across the older werewolf's face. She's probably had enough of werewolves for now. I'm not so sure, Alex replied. He closed his eyes but not before seeing a light of hope shine in the alpha's eye. Chapter 24. Alex saw the memory as though he was watching it from a distance. A little boy and a little girl climbed down from the bus. They held hands, afraid of the new place filled with strangers. Adults hurried in every direction. The smell of werewolf permeated the air along with the scent of wood and cement, mortar, and paint from the construction of the academy. Don't worry, Cass. I'll take care of you, Alex heard his young self say. Someone shoved past them, knocking Cassie against him. Protective anger flooded through Alex. He spun with his fists out. The boy was a full head taller than Alex, but Alex swung anyway. His little fist connected with the boy's shoulder. Torrin turned, his green eyes flashing. He threw a punch back. It hit Alex's face. The young boy didn't feel it through his anger. He swung again and again, until arms caught him from behind. Slow down, champ. You don't want to fight. At the time, Jace had been an acquaintance to the twins, a friend of Jet's who visited from time to time. To see the dean protecting him from his first moments at the academy filled Alex with warmth. Jet's last words to Alex had been to never stop fighting no matter what. Alex had taken those words to heart. I don't want to stop fighting, Alex heard his younger self say. Cassie touched his shoulder. It's okay, Alex, she said, innocence in her voice. Uncle Jay's will take care of things. Jay sat back on his heels. He had tears in his eyes as he nodded. I'll take care of everything, I promise. A steady beeping brought Alex back from the memory. He took a deep breath, aware that the pain in his stomach had eased a great deal. Alex. He opened his eyes and was rewarded with the sight of Ciale looking down at him, her wavy brown hair falling around her shoulders and her gray eyes soft. As she watched him, when she saw that he was awake, her eyes creased at the corners with her smile of relief. Alex lifted a hand and touched her cheek. If I could wake up after every surgery and see you like this, I'd get hurt more often. Ciale's smile deepened. I'm hoping that someday you'll realize you have a lot to live for and stop getting yourself into such bad situations. I fight because I have so much to live for, Alex replied. Good answer, Ciale said. She leaned down and kissed him gently on the lips. Alex's heart monitor gave a loud beep, skipped 2 more, and sounded an alarm. Ciale leaned back. We really need to get that taken care of. Alex shrugged as the sound of footsteps hurried down the hall. I can't say I blame my heart. You make everything in my life more complicated. Hurt brushed across Ciale's face. She turned away. Alex sat up so quickly pain knifed through his stomach. He caught her arm with a gasp. Ciale. Alex, you should be lying down, Ciale said, easing him back to the pillow. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, Alex said, closing his eyes for a moment to steady himself. When he opened them again, she was still there, waiting for him to speak. He held her gaze, willing her to understand. When Cassie and I first arrived here as orphans, this was all we had: 4 walls, professors, and a struggle to fit in with the packs that were created. He took her hand again. Life was simple, too simple. My whole purpose was to find Drogon and the general and end their reign of terror for werewolves. And now? Ciale asked after a few moments had passed. Alex gathered his thoughts. Now my life is filled with things like love, laughter, waiting to hear your voice each morning, hoping to walk with you in the woods, missing you. She smiled down at him and he smiled back. I've been gone from you way too long, and every moment apart is harder than the last. My life is far better complicated. Mine too, she agreed, touching his cheek. The footsteps up the hall reached them. Meredith and Lyra hurried into the room. Is everything okay? Meredith asked breathlessly. He's awake, Ciale said, stepping back so Meredith could see her son. Oh, thank goodness, Meredith said. She crossed to Alex's side. We were so worried. The surgery was more complicated than we thought it would be, Lyra explained. The silver had encroached into your organs. Meaning? Alex asked. Meaning that your body absorbed a lot more of the silver than was good for you, Meredith explained. We cleared out what we could, then we had to wait and see if letting you bleed would clean out the rest. You needed a transfusion. You should have seen everyone clamoring for the chance to donate blood, Ciale told him. Of course Cassie was the best pick, Lyra said. She insisted. We've been waiting for 3 days for you to wake up. The shadows beneath. Meredith's eyes told Alex how little sleep she had gotten. I'm so glad you're okay. Thanks to you both, Alex said. He pushed up gingerly to a sitting position. Ciale helped him when she saw what he was doing. I think you should rest, Meredith began, but Alex was already sitting up. I feel a lot better, he said. Besides, I've spent far too much time in hospital beds for one lifetime. Take it easy, Ciale reminded him. He swung his legs around and stood. A smile spread across his face. See, just fine. He took a step forward and his legs gave out. Meredith and Ciale caught him before he could fall. They helped him to the chair Ciale had been sitting in. Maybe I should listen a bit better, Alex admitted. Meredith just shook her head with a smile. No reason to start now. Hey, Alex said. She chuckled. We'll go let the others know you're awake. It's up to you if you want to get dressed or get back into that bed. She winked at him. I'd recommend the bed. Alex listened to their footsteps fade back down the hall. That means she thinks I should get dressed. Alex, Ciale chided. He gave an innocent shrug. What? It'll just worry everyone to see me still lying in bed like some invalid. I've given them enough stress. What about me? Ciale asked. Alex gave her a teasing smile. I might need help getting dressed. She rolled her eyes. You're relentless and charming, he asked. She laughed and grabbed a change of clothes someone had left on the counter, tossing them to him. Maybe a little bit, she admitted before she headed to the door. I'll be out here if you need some help. She pulled it shut behind her. With everyone gone, Alex gave up all pretenses. He took a deep breath, then another, testing the way his stomach pulled strangely at the movement. It felt like things were still healing. He wondered how long it would take for the silver to work its way out of his system completely. He gingerly pulled the hospital gown over his head. The movement strained his wound. He let the gown fall to the floor. A quick inspection of his stomach showed that the wound had mostly closed. He pressed the clean bandage back against it, glad it felt much better than it had in the forest. He could hear them coming back up the hallway. The thought of putting his arms over his head to put on his shirt was too much. Alex grabbed the underwear and pants, leaning over her, so he made do with balancing on one foot and trying to slip his other in the pant leg. He finally got it and managed to pull up the zipper and button it before the door opened. Alex! Trent paused at the sight of his friend half-clothed. Give us a minute, the werewolf called over his shoulder. What are you doing, Trent? Alex asked, surprised. Trent grabbed the shirt from him and shoved it over his head. He helped Alex work his arms through the sleeves. Seriously, man, if you're going to pretend to be okay, you've got to do better than this, Trent said, straightening Alex's shirt. If your sister walks in here and sees you pale and with blood still showing through the bandage, she's going to order you back in that bed for a week. I know you better than to think you'll put up with that, and this academy doesn't need another war right now. Alex knew the werewolf was right. Thanks, he said. Don't mention it. I won't, Alex said. Trent gave him a stealing look. I just helped you get dressed. Seriously. Don't mention it. I won't really, Alex said with a laugh. Trent pulled open the door. All right, you can come in. Alex was swarmed with well-wishers. His sister was first, followed by Tennyson, Jericho, Tareth, and what felt like half the school. You need more sleep, Cassie said after giving him a hug. You look tired. Alex smiled, pretending that her hug didn't just feel like it cost him a year of his life. I'm fine, Cass. Thanks to you, I hear. She shrugged. What's a twin for if not blood transfusions? Will you take it easy for a while? I always take it easy, Alex told her. Cassie rolled her eyes. After handshakes, hugs, and many questions about what happened, Trent and Ciale practically herded the students out of the room. He'll be back to school tomorrow, Trent reassured them. Glad you're feeling better, Pip called. Torrin saved the toilets for you, Nate said. Great, Alex mumbled as the door closed. Maybe I should go back to bed. Ciale ducked under his arm. You can stop pretending to be so tough now. I am tough, Alex protested, letting her help him back to the bed, mostly just to be close to her. I think a kitten could take you on right now, Trent noted. Alex sat on the edge of the bed. Kittens are much stronger than people give them credit for. A knock sounded on the door. When it opened, Alex smiled at the sight of Jays and Mouse standing there. How are you feeling? Jays asked. Oh, 100%, Alex replied. Jays grinned. Liar. Maybe, Alex said with a one-shoulder shrug. We brought you something, Mouse told him. The professor pulled a screen from the case he was carrying. You're going to show him now? Trent asked. I was thinking we could make a bigger production of this, balloons, big screen, fireworks. Fireworks? Mouse asked. I know, not exactly low profile, but maybe that doesn't matter anymore. Trent's reply perked Alex's interest. Okay, what is it? Mouse handed Alex the screen. Ciale took a seat on the bed next to him. At Alex's motion, Trent grinned and took a seat on his other side. Alex didn't know what to expect. He let out a slow breath and pushed the play. Chapter 25. The video showed one of the members of the news team from Grayton City. He looked a bit worn from his experience, but smiled bravely at the camera. Alex Davies is a name now known across the nation. It is time that someone told the true story of this young werewolf who was brave enough to change our city and our hearts. The video showed Alex in his hoodie walking out of one of the gang hideouts, with the girls around him. It was obvious by the way they stuck close to him that they weren't afraid of him. Police officers swarmed forward and Alex spoke softly to the girls. At his encouraging nod, they went to the officers. The image faded at the sight of Alex walking away into the darkness, his hands in his pockets and a silver 7 just visible on the sleeve of his hoodie. Alex saved many of our daughters, sisters, friends, and loved ones from the gangs of the SAA. Thanks to his bravery and the continued efforts of the Grayton City Police Department, the gangs of the SAA have significantly reduced their illegal activity within the city. The streets are safer and families are becoming less afraid to walk the sidewalks. The video shifted to an image of schoolchildren playing at the park in the evening. Alex smiled at the sight of Cherish, Tanner, Sarah, Josh, and Jen kicking a soccer ball in the middle of the grassy field. That's where it all started, he said quietly. The next video sent ice through his veins. It was the clip of Drogon addressing the city. His mismatched eyes leered from the screen. I'll kill a hostage every half hour until Alex Carso appears at Grayton City Hospital. I have no qualms against bloodshed. The camera showed the one of his victims on the floor. Before it shifted back up to Drogon, the camera crew of Grayton's evening news can vouch that this is real. Alex, brother, if I can't take out your precious academy, I'll hurt the city you seem to love. The news reporter came back on the screen. We were held hostage in the Grayton City Hospital by Drogon Carso, wanted for extremist activity and murder. Alex went there in answer to the broadcast, willing to trade his life for the human hostages Drogon Carso held. The next image showed Alex stepping out of the elevator doors. It showed Drogon talking about the position Jays had been placed in, forcing him to choose between killing werewolves on national television or letting his mother die. It revealed Drogon giving the order for the hospital to be lit on fire, despite Alex arguing against it. Then showed Jenkins throwing the little girl out the window. There was a breathless moment of silence as Alex ran across the floor in Dove. Outside, the camera followed him, recording him catching the little girl. The scene shifted to another camera that showed him landing hard on the cement. It was obvious how shaky he was when Officer Dune ran up to him. Alex handed the little girl over and ran back into the now flaming building. We were taken to another building and chained to the walls. Drogon Carso demanded that we record Alex slaying the human hostages. When we refused, he swallowed, then said, Drogon shot Jeff Sampson. He ran a hand down his face and continued, I didn't even think Alex could stand. He had received a wound in his stomach that kept bleeding even though I thought werewolves could heal quickly. Drogon said something about silver in the wound. When Alex refused to kill the humans, Drogon brought down Alex's sister. The video showed Alex's face when Ciale was brought into the room. Alex's stomach clenched at the memory of seeing her captive. He kept shaking his head, as if denying that she was there. She was shoved into the cell when Drogon took his phone call. The scene shifted, showing Alex and Ciale sitting together on the floor. From the news team's point of view, they couldn't hear what the pair was saying. It looked like a heartbreaking scene of hopelessness, where they tried to say their goodbyes. The scene then showed Jenkins threatening to shoot the humans. Alex argued, trying to save their lives. Jays Carso attacked the building. When the missile struck, Jenkins, Drogon's second in command, tried to kill all human hostages. The scene showed the gunman advancing on the news team and the other humans. The camera showed Alex morphing into rage mode. He tore through the cage and took down the guards in a bloody, efficient attack. Jenkins had a gun pressed to Ciale's head. A shot rang out and Jenkins' bullet only clipped her. Alex finished him quickly. The scene was shaky, as though the cameraman couldn't keep the camera steady. After all that he had seen, it showed someone banging on the door and Alex crossing to place himself between the humans, Ciale, and whoever was trying to come through. The next scene shifted to a shot of Cherish addressing the camera. Alex Davies is a hero, she said with tears in her eyes. I'm here because of him. He's my hero, one of the girls from the SAA said. He brought my sister home, a boy Alex recognized from the hallway of Cherish's apartment told the camera. The next interview was Mrs. Summers. Werewolves don't need to be feared. They're just like us. They love and care for their families just like we do. They should be allowed to live normal lives. Alex was surprised to see Trent next. Alex is my closest friend, he said, his expression proud. Alex glanced at him and the werewolf ducked his head in embarrassment. His parents were killed by human extremists, forcing him to live as an orphan. Yet he has been the most vocal advocate toward repairing relationships between humans and werewolves that I know. He is a good guy. Little reckless, but the greatest person I've ever met. I'm proud to say that. Alex Davies is my very best friend. Alex squeezed Trent's shoulder. The werewolf gave him a small smile. I hope. That was okay. It was perfect, Alex replied quietly. The video shifted back to the reporter. Alex Davies is a hero. Perhaps his actions show that it is time to reconsider our views on werewolves. Prejudice is another name for fear, and fear comes from ignorance. What I've learned about werewolves over these past few days has given me more understanding about their race than I've ever had. I no longer fear them because I understand that we are fighting for the same thing. The camera moved in as the reporter spoke directly to the screen. Alex was willing to give up his life to save humans he didn't even know. A 17-year-old werewolf with more than enough reason to hate humans can put aside his prejudice and show such bravery. Can't we do the same and give werewolves the chance to prove that they are able to live among us? This is Cooper Peterson, grateful to be addressing you tonight because a werewolf had the courage to confront a terrorist and prevent mass murder. Have a good evening. Grayton City. The screen went dark. Alex stared at it for a few moments. Alex? Jace asked quietly. Alex shook his head. It's strange to see myself like that. You're making a difference, Trent told him. Maybe the biggest difference this nation has had when it comes to werewolves. Jace set a hand on Alex's shoulder. You did what I tried to do. You made it move toward bringing peace between humans and werewolves. Do you think it will work? Alex asked the dean. Jace gave him a small smile. We can only wait and see, but it's a start. Alex appreciated his honesty. He handed the screen back to Mouse. Thank you for showing it to me. The entire school has seen it, the small professor told him. Everyone? Alex asked in surprise. Nikki insisted, Jace told him. She said everyone should know what one of our students has accomplished. He smiled at Alex. She's extremely proud of you. For a good reason, Ciale said. Alex felt a bit overwhelmed. This is a lot of positivity. I think I need to go break a window or something. Jace laughed. Need a punishment? Definitely, Alex replied. Okay, the dean said. How about going to school tomorrow? Alex groaned. Seriously? Jace patted his shoulder. Only if you're up to it. Relax as much as you need. Meredith said you should take it easy. School it is, Alex said. Jace shook his head. You sure like to give your mom a hard time. Alex grinned. She said she wanted the real mom experience. I heard that, Meredith called from further down the hall. I love you, Mom, Alex yelled. I love you too, Alex. Even though you're stubborn, she replied. Alex laughed. That's what you love about me. Meredith's answering laughter reached his ears. You're a good son, Jace said. I'm not, but she loves me anyway, Alex replied. He tried to stand up. 6 hands reached out to help him. He paused and grinned. Seriously? I'm never going to get better if I don't do this on my own. His friends and professors stepped back to give him space. Alex rose to his feet, feeling stronger than he had before. I guess it's time to remember that I go to this school. Ciale walked beside him as he made his way up the hall. When he reached the main hallway, he immediately felt the stares of the students passing by. Whispers began and he heard his name passed back and forth on his way to the stairs. Maybe Nikki could have held off on showing them the video, Alex whispered to Ciale. Why? She asked teasingly. Hate everyone talking about you? Alex shook his head. Everyone always talks about me. Except this time they're saying good things. She laughed in reply. When they reached the stairs, the students walking up and down immediately moved to the sides to give Alex room. He had to walk up slower than he wanted. And every second he spent being stared at and talked about made his skin crawl. He couldn't ignore the looks of awe on the younger students' faces. Maybe I should go back to the SAA, he said. Gangs are easier to face than this. The mighty Alex, afraid of a little hero worship, Ciale replied. Alex breathed a sigh of relief when they reached the top. Ciale walked with him to the door of Pactoran's quarters. You sure you're okay? She asked, her tone belying the confident smile she gave. I'll be fine. Like Nate said, Torin saved me the toilets. At least I'll have something to do. Ciale shook her head. Don't you dare. If you make that stomach wound open again. Alex silenced her with a kiss. When he stepped back, she gave a flustered huff. I'll be fine, he said. He opened the door and stepped inside before she could argue. It's about time you got here, Torrin said. Alex glanced over at the alpha's tone. The room was surprisingly empty except for the alpha, who stood near the couch with his arms crossed as if he had been waiting for Alex for quite a while. I didn't know I was expected, Alex replied levelly. Torrin's eyes narrowed. You've definitely slacked off as my second. Maybe you should replace me. I considered it, Torrin said, especially when you decided to announce that you beat me in front of the entire school. Alex leaned against the door in an effort to appear nonchalant. He knew he couldn't take on Torrin again in his condition, and he couldn't blame the alpha if he decided to call for another rank duel to defend his honor. In hindsight, that was probably poor timing. You think? Torrin asked dryly. Alex studied him in silence for a few minutes. He was growing tired of the badgering. Patience definitely wasn't his best virtue when he was achy and exhausted. So now what, Alpha? You want to beat me again, show everyone who's the best and all that? Don't worry. I have silver in my veins again. It'll probably slow me down. He gave Torrin a look of steel. That didn't stop me from beating you last time, though. Torrin's eyebrows lifted slightly. You always were too stubborn for your own good. I remember you attacking me the first time we set foot at this place. Caught off guard by the alpha's cordiality, Alex answered with caution. You shoved my sister aside, and I was looking for a fight. Greys aren't supposed to fight alphas. Alex gave a small smile. I guess I missed that memo. Torrin surprised him with a chuckle. Yeah, you did. Let's just forget about it for now. Alex nodded. That's fair. He pushed away from the door and hesitated. You want me to scrub the toilets? Torrin shook his head. Nate's got toilet duty for the rest of the term. Heard he told you I saved them for you. Just what you need to hear after everything you've been through. Payback sucks. Alex laughed. Yeah, it does. He made his way to his room. Torrin called over his shoulder. Are you going to miss the toilets? Not one bit, Alex replied with a grin. Chapter 26. Alex was trying to find a comfortable position on the couch that night as members of Pack Torrin worked on their studies or played games. It was late, but nobody wanted to go to bed. Alex was enjoying the quiet acceptance of the pack. Nate and Matt worked on college algebra while several of the others were busy playing cards in a circle on the floor. Torrin was busy showing Charlie, one of the younger members of the pack, how to combine vinegar, baking soda, and soap to make a volcano out of a pile of dirt. He had commanded Nate to bring in from outside. Torrin said the experiment was purely for education, but his excitement at pouring the vinegar in the hole made Alex wonder. A howl cut through the air. Everyone paused what they were doing. Torrin glanced at Alex. An alarm. Alex shook his head. The tones are wrong. I think it's actually a call for night games. A buzz of excitement ran through the room. They hadn't had night games long enough that some of the younger members of the pack hadn't even participated. The rest of the pack filled them in on what to expect. Torrin gave Alex a searching look. Alex caught his expression. You knew about this? Torrin shrugged with what passed from the hulking werewolf as a smile. Alex rose gingerly and followed them down the stairs. Other packs were already rushing to the courtyard. Ciale found him at the doors. They walked down the stairs together. So night games? Yeah, Alex replied. We used to hold them years back. It was a way for packs to bond. We turned it into strategy training when the academy was under threat by the general. The games died out after that. You sound like you regretted it, she noted. I did, Alex admitted. It was fun and really did help with unity. You can't participate, Trent pointed out, jogging down the stairs. Meredith would kill you if bleeding to death doesn't first. Thanks for the reminder, Alex said dryly. Trent grinned. Just trying to keep you from killing yourself. Somebody's got to, Cassie said, joining them with Tennyson at her side. Alex's sister set a hand on Ciale's shoulder, slowing her. The others stopped as well. I need to thank you, Cassie said. Alex and the others fell back to give them some space. His werewolf hearing picked up the conversation anyway. I can't believe you pretended to be me, Cassie told her. You could have been killed. I didn't want them to get you. Drogon never gives up, Ciale replied. Cassie gave Ciale a hug. Thank you for protecting me and for saving my brother. You were really brave. You're welcome, Ciale replied, hugging her back. When they turned, everyone pretended to not have been listening in. Both girls smiled at the werewolves' attempts at feigning innocence. We better hurry. Torrhen's not known for his patience, Cassie told them. The others fell in behind her as she rushed to the courtyard. Welcome, werewolves, Torrhen said, catching the attention of the packs that milled below. Night games are a tradition that has been gone for far too long. It's time we start them up again. He turned to Alex. Alex felt everyone's focus immediately shift to him. Unfortunately, our resident celebrity won't be able to join us in participating in the games, and so he is going to be in charge. Alex stared at Torrhen. The alpha gave a small shrug, making light of the honor he gave to the gray. I won't follow him. Alex's stomach tightened painfully. He turned to face Boris, who pushed off from the wall and stalked toward him. I won't follow that stray no matter if he's managed to convince the world. He's a saint, Boris spat. I'm not a saint, Alex replied, his tone level. He refused to step back when the alpha stepped so close he had to tip his head back to look into the huge werewolf's face. He let his sincerity show in his voice. I don't blame you for holding me accountable for Cleo's death. I'm sorry for what happened. Boris's eyes narrowed. You're a coward and a snake. You let her die and I'll never forgive you for that. Even if the dean and everyone else around here is fooled by your innocent act, I'm not. Someday you'll pay for the life she lost. Alex's hands clenched and unclenched. He wasn't sure if he could beat the alpha again. Guilt warred in him for the truth in Boris's words. Cleo would be at the academy still if it wasn't for him. He couldn't blame her brother for his anger. Boris, give it a rest. The growl in Torrhen's voice left no doubt as to what the alpha would do if Boris refused. The alpha stared at each other, Boris's chest heaving and his hands clenched into fists so tight the veins stood out along his arms. He already beat you once, Torrhen said quietly so that only the closest werewolves could hear. Do you want to tempt fate again? Maybe Jays will give him your pack next time. Boris glared at the other alpha. I doubt he could beat me now. Alex held himself perfectly straight despite the way it pulled at the healing wound in his stomach. Beat me if you want, he said, his voice deadly calm. It won't bring Cleo back. Believe me, I've tried to come to terms with her. Death by fighting. It doesn't work. Smashing you to a pulp would make me feel better, Boris growled. Alex shoved his hands in his pockets. Then go ahead. Alex almost hoped the alpha would take him up on the offer. He wondered if it would help ease the guilt, even if just a little bit, though he had found out the hard way that experiencing more pain wouldn't take away the ache in his heart from Cleo's death. Boris hesitated. He glanced behind him at the watching packs. After a moment, the alpha turned on his heel and stalked away. Torrhen waited until Boris was gone, then shook his head. Some werewolves just don't enjoy good night games. Students laughed in reply. The tension dissipated, leaving students eager to begin the games. The alpha turned back to Alex. So what do you say? Want to take charge of this chaos? Definitely, Alex replied. He found himself staring at the alpha, wondering when Torrhen had become so good at crowd control in politics. Somehow during Torrhen's loss he had grown up. Alex cleared his throat. All right, werewolves, go phase and meet back here in 5 minutes. Last pack here gets to run laps, he said, echoing Coach Vance's favorite punishment. The packs immediately took off, intent on their quarters and getting back faster than the others. Alex eased down on the first step. The scuff of a foot made him turn his head. You're not playing, he asked Ciale. She sat down next to him and slipped her hand into his. I'd rather stay with you. I want to see what you come up with. Alex smiled. Good. I might need some ideas. What do you have? A scavenger hunt. Ciale laughed. Perfect. Can they bring back some chocolate? Alex chuckled in reply. I don't think you'd want to eat it after they bring back. Trust me, it wouldn't be worth it. I'll take your word for it, she replied with a smile. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Alex glanced at her. You okay? She nodded. I'm just glad you're here. There were a few times I doubted you'd ever make it back. Alex could hear the pain she tried to keep from her voice. He put an arm around her. I shouldn't have put you through that. You had things you needed to deal with. I understand that better than most. Werewolves in wolf form flooded out the doors that had been propped open. Behind them, Alex rose with Ciale at his side. It was impossible not to smile at the enthusiasm of the wolves bouncing and prancing in the courtyard. They nipped each other and filled the night with barks and yips, anxious for the games to begin. We are having a scavenger hunt, Alex called out. Your first task is to bring me a branch from a blueberry bush. The first pack to give me 1 wins. The first task. He raised a hand. And go. The entire force of werewolves took off around the school. They could hear the wolves growling and fighting to get through the gate. A blueberry bush? Ciale asked. They're pokey. Trust me, I know from experience. It'll be a challenge. He smiled at her. You get to choose the next one. She rubbed her hands together. I'm starting to enjoy this. Pac Miguel was the first to appear with a straggly blueberry branch that barely deserved the name. Alex accepted it anyway. Pac Miguel is the winner of the first task. He called when the rest of the packs had arrived. The first pack with 3 completed tasks wins the honor of. He looked around, wondering what the prize could be. A thought occurred to him. Of a free day. From my mom's English class. He hoped he could talk her into it. The excitement from the wolves below let him know that the prize was one they appreciated. He hoped Meredith wouldn't mind. At Alex's prompting, Ciale said, Your next task is to get a rock from the lake. By the end of the games, Pac Torn had 2 wins with a sprig of mint from the top of the cliff and an early blooming dandelion. Pac Miguel had 1 win and Pac Maliki was tied with them after bringing back the rock. Alex and Ciale grinned at each other. This next task is going to be a hard one. It's worth 2 points for anyone who can accomplish it. Ciale laughed at his hesitation. He's afraid to tell you, she announced. The wolves below snorted with laughter in reply. Do you want to know? She asked. At the answering barks, she said, You have to take Cook Gerald's apron. Alex and Ciale rushed to get out of the way of the mad scramble up the stairs. That followed. Alex couldn't imagine the chaos they had created, but the barks and commotion from inside the academy gave him some idea. A few minutes later, Torin came running down the steps with the apron in his jaws. It was shredded at the edges and slobbery, but in one piece. Well done, Alex said, accepting the cloth from the alpha. Took a few minutes for the rest of the packs to follow. A few wolves looked upset, but only a bit. When Alex announced Pac Torn as the winner, the other students conceded. That is definitely something we need to do again, Ciale said with a laugh as they followed the wolves up the stairs. Next time we'll be able to participate. And then they'd better look out, she said. She rose onto her tiptoes and kissed him on the cheek. Thank you for a fun night. Thank you for sharing it with me. It would have been boring sitting there by myself. She smiled up at him. How was it with company? The best night I could have asked for, Alex replied. He pulled her close and smiled when she leaned her head against his chest. I'll call for night games. Every night if I can spend each of them with you. You're stuck with me, Alex Davies. Better get used to it. He took a deep breath, filling his senses with her scent. I'll never get used to how amazing you are. She looked up at him as they walked up the stairs together. You're cheesy. And you like it. I like it a lot, she replied. He sighed and stepped back. I'd better let you get to bed. Coach Vance will be upset if I'm not in class tomorrow. He better not make you work too hard. Your mom will give him a piece of her mind. Don't worry, he reassured her. Vance is a friend. He watched her walk to the door of Pac Jericho. She smiled at him and waved before closing the door behind her. As soon as she was inside, a force slammed into him and pinned him to the wall. He struggled in Boris's grip, but the alpha lifted him by the throat. Think you're so tough, Stray? Boris demanded. You don't have everyone fooled by that act. It's your fault my sister's dead. You're nothing but a murderer. Alex tried to pull the alpha's hand away, but his grip was too strong. Boris. I'm sorry, Alex forced out. I know she'd be here if it wasn't for me. Boris squeezed tighter, cutting off Alex's air supply. Black pressed in at the edges of Alex's vision. His head felt like it was going to explode. Alex, Ciale wanted me to tell you. Trent paused at the door to Pac Jericho's quarters. His mouth fell open. You're a waste of my time, Boris growled. He let Alex go and stormed through the door to his rooms, slamming it shut behind him. Alex leaned over with his hands on his knees, fighting to catch his breath. Trent hurried over and set a hand on his shoulder. Are you okay? Alex rubbed his neck as he straightened back up. Fine. Trent gave him a searching look. That didn't look fine. It looked like Boris was trying to kill you while you're weak. Alex let out a slow breath through his bruised throat. I know what it feels like to hold all of the pain inside. He deserves to vent. Trent shook his head. Not by killing you. You didn't pull the trigger that killed Cleo, Alex. Alex closed his eyes, willing the pounding in his head to stop. To him I did. Trent let out a loud breath. I'd recommend not wandering around this place alone. I'll keep that in mind, Alex said. Trent walked him to the door of Pactorin's quarters. The small werewolf made it a point to watch Alex close it behind him before Alex heard his footsteps walking away. Chapter 27. Alex was attempting to listen to Professor Mouse's lecture in human and werewolf biology when Trent burst through the door. Every student looked up at his sudden entrance. Trent paused as if he just realized he had interrupted the lesson. Sorry, Professor, Trent said, not sounding the least bit apologetic in his haste. He searched the room and found Alex. Can I borrow Alex for a minute? He's got a lot of work to do to catch up, the professor said. Will it take long? Trent shook his head quickly. Fine, Professor Mouse allowed. Alex left his books and hurried from the room. Trent was already halfway down the hall. Hey, wait up, Alex called. Trent turned so that he was walking backward so quickly he was almost running. Hurry. It's worth it, trust me. Alex broke into a run, following Trent to Jay's office and through the panel. As soon as they reached the wolf den, Trent ran up the stairs to where Brock and Jay's already waited. Come on, Trent called. Alex grinned as he jogged up the steps after his friend. Are you supposed to be running around? Jay's asked. It's only been a few days. Yeah, Brock seconded. If you wear yourself out, Meredith's already threatened to put everyone on lockdown until you get better. I'm fine, Alex replied. It actually feels good to get moving again, and Trent said it was worth it. Oh, it is, Trent promised. Push play, Brock. I will when I'm ready, Brock said. He shoved a couple of crackers in his mouth. Okay, I'm ready, he said through the mouthful. He hit a button on the keyboard in front of him. Good morning, citizens of Grayton City, news reporter Cooper Peterson said. With a bright smile, looking far better than he had the last time Alex saw him do a broadcast. I have an interesting headline for you. He picked up the sheet of paper in front of him. Grayton High School has apparently agreed with our suggestion to improve relations between humans and werewolves. Their prom is scheduled for next weekend, and with the approval of Mayor Hendricks and the Grayton City Police Department, they have invited Alex Davies and his werewolf friends to join them. What? Alex said in shock. Yeah, Trent told him. You heard right. They want you to come for a dance. In a human school with actual humans. Werewolves and humans dancing together in the school. I get it, Alex said. He shook his head. I just don't believe it. He looked at the dean. What do you think? Well, Jays replied. I think it would be rude not to go. Really? Alex was surprised. You'd let werewolf students go to the prom? What about Drogon and the security risks? It'd be the perfect place for an attack, especially with all the media that's bound to be present. There are risks, Jays conceded. We've already notified the Black Team and the GPA. We will make the area as secure as we possibly can. He met Alex's gaze. But this opportunity is too priceless to pass up. Because of the steps you've taken, we're being given the chance to make headway toward improving human and werewolf relationships. If the authorities of the city of Grayton are willing to take the risk, we will too. Alex nodded in agreement. It is worth it if we take the right precautions. We should only take the werewolves we can trust to handle the situation with care. Give me a list of students you feel you would like to take with you and I'll run them by the professors, Jay said. I'm sending Mouse with a team to sweep the area so we know what we're dealing with. Man, can you believe it? Trent asked when they were walking down the hallway. Later. Werewolf students at a human school dance? That's how it used to be, Alex reminded him. Except nobody knew they were werewolves. The hard part will be that anyone we take will be known for being part of our race. Trent's steps slowed. So they won't be able to hide. Alex shook his head. Not after this. It might be dangerous in the long run. I didn't think of it that way, Trent said. What do we do? What Jay's told us to. We'll make a list of students we can trust and make sure everyone who goes knows what the danger is. I'm sure the news team will be there and possibly protesters. He paused at the thought. I'm not sure all of the parents are going to be thrilled about werewolves dancing with their students. You mean we actually have to dance with humans? Trent asked, trepidation suddenly filling his voice. Alex chuckled. Don't worry. You can dance with Jordan. Trent glanced at him sideways. You've noticed. Alex grinned at his friend. You showed up to rescue me with Jordan at your side. That's pretty obvious, especially since it means Jay's approved her to come with you. I take it you cleared things up. Your advice was great, Trent said. I learned a ton about butterflies. They are actually quite fascinating. Did you know that there are over 17,500 species of butterflies? Also, they are found in every continent except Antarctica, and some monarchs even migrate thousands of miles. Fascinating, Alex said, holding up a hand. I'm glad learning about butterflies helped your relationship, but I think we have a task to do. Oh right, Trent said, filled with enthusiasm. I get to dance with Jordan. It's going to be perfect. I wonder if she's going to want us to match. Match? Alex asked. Well, yeah. There will be dresses and tuxedos, ties and corsages. I've always dreamed of a dance like this. Trent grinned. I sound just like one of the girls, but I don't care. Alex listened to his friend talk about the details of the prom as they made their way back to Professor Mouse's class. Trent was in the middle of a tirade, wondering if they could get Jays to let them rent a limo, or perhaps he could just make one when Alex spoke up. Don't you have a class right now? Trent glanced at the classroom. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be learning about international trade and finance. Professor Thorson wasn't thrilled when Brock called me out of class. I'd better go. He ran up the hallway. Alex was in Meredith's English class when Jay's voice interrupted over the intercom. Professor Meredith, will you please send Alex Davies to my office? Whispers filled the room. Meredith nodded at him. Stop getting into trouble, Torrin said when he walked past. Alex shrugged. It's my nature. Torrin laughed as the door shut. Jays was waiting outside his office. A few seconds later, Trent came running. Oh good, you found him, the werewolf breathed. What's going on? Alex asked. You have some visitors, Jay said. He tipped his head toward the front of the school. Alex walked down the hall wondering what he would find. He reached the doors to the courtyard and stared. Cherish and her friends from Grayton stood on the steps. As soon as Alex opened the door, she ran up and threw her arms around him. Thank you so much, she said. He heard the tremor in her voice. You saved my life. It shouldn't have been at risk in the first place, Alex replied, filled with relief that she was all right. Jays had told him that she made it through the hospital okay, but seeing her in person really made a difference. You did an amazing thing, Tanner said. Yeah, Josh agreed. We were glued to the television. My grandfather was in the hospital and they wouldn't let anyone close. Is he okay? Alex asked in concern. Josh nodded. Your werewolves got him out. He's in the new Airdyne building they're using as the hospital until they rebuild the one that burned. Alex nodded. I'm glad I could help. Beneath his smile, he warred with guilt. If Drogon hadn't known he was the demon of Grayton, the patients in the hospital wouldn't have been in trouble. He pushed the thought down. So what brings you guys here? You know it's not the best policy to show up at a school of werewolves whenever you feel like it. Sarah smiled. You guys aren't that bad. Alex gave her a mocking, skeptical look. Are you sure about that? She laughed. Pretty sure. Jen cut in as though she couldn't contain her excitement. Did you see the invitation to the dance? I did. It sounds like fun. Alex had to smile at the way she grabbed Josh's hand and gave him a huge smile. He didn't want to stifle her enthusiasm, but he had to ask, are you sure it was thought through? It might bring some bad publicity to your school. Why? Jen asked. Because we're willing to put aside our prejudice and accept that you are normal like humans. Jen, werewolves aren't normal like humans, Josh told her. They're a different race. That's the point though. We can accept our differences. Cherish nodded. Yes, and it's a big step for everyone. We want to make a difference. She gave him a pleading look. Come on, Alex. It'll be great. Alex hesitated, wanting to draw out their tension, but at the anxious looks on their faces he couldn't keep them in suspense any longer. He nodded with a smile and relief filled their faces. I already got it cleared with my dean. We're looking forward to it. Cherish handed him a cell phone. What's this for? You should probably let our principal know. He was anxious to hear back, she explained. Alex realized she had already pressed the dial number. He could hear someone on the other end. Hello, Alex said, putting it to his ear. This is Principal Dalton. Hi, Principal Dalton, Alex said, surprised at how nervous he suddenly was. This is Alex Davies. He heard the principal's quick intake of breath. Hello, Alex. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I would like to thank you for your bravery at the hospital, and for bringing the girls home from the SAA. I was happy to help, Alex replied. He wasn't sure where to go from there. And went with, we saw the invitation to the prom. Are you sure you want werewolves at your school? Don't give him a chance to say no, Jen scolded. Cherish just smiled. Don't worry. He won't. Yes, we are, the principal replied, his tone warm. We want to thank you for what you did, and we would also like to be the first school to welcome werewolves with open arms. I've cleared it with my dean. Is it all right if we bring chaperones? Alex was worried how the principal might feel about adult werewolves in his school. I would expect it from any school we invite, the principal replied. I'm glad to hear your dean is open to the idea. Please have him give me a call and we'll discuss the details. Our plan is to have the dance next Friday night. Alex thought quickly ahead and something occurred to him. Would you mind if we changed it to Wednesday? Principal Dalton paused, then said, I think that will work. Is there a reason for the change? Alex fought back a smile when he said, yes, Friday is the night of the full moon. The principal chuckled. I almost ruined this thing before it even got going. Thanks for the catch. No problem. We'll see you on Wednesday and I'll have Dean Jays give you a call. He was about to hang up when the principal said, wait, your dean is Jays Carso. Cherish had overheard the principal's surprise and was grinning. Yes, Alex said. He figured if Principal Dalton had a problem with Jays, he might as well get things over with before he involved his classmates. He's also like a father to me. There was a moment of silence, then the principal said, I guess I shouldn't expect less considering everything you've done for Grayton. Jays Carso is welcome at our school. Thank you, Alex said, more relieved than he could voice. Bye, Principal Dalton. Goodbye, Alex. It was nice talking to you. Alex handed the phone back to Cherish, feeling as though he had just been caught in a dream. Talking to a human high school principal who welcomed them with open arms was more nerve-wracking than he had thought it would be. I guess we're going, he said in answer to the expectant looks on his friends' faces. Yay! Jen and Sarah cheered. Are you bringing any cute werewolves? Josh asked. Jen shoved his shoulder. Just kidding, he said, raising his hands in innocence. I think it'd be best if everyone I bring is in a couple, that way if the human students feel uncomfortable dancing with werewolves, there won't be any awkwardness. Tanner nodded, but Alex caught Cherish's crestfallen look. He smiled. All except for Jericho. I'm sure he'd want to go, but he doesn't have a girl. Everyone looked at Cherish. She blushed, but the smile that spread across her face was enough of an answer. You guys had better go. There are a few less friendly werewolves here, he said, thinking of Boris. Sounds good. We'll catch you Wednesday, Tanner said. Alex said his goodbyes and watched them head to Tanner's car. Was that who I think it was? Alex turned at Jericho's voice. Yes, he answered. You're coming with me to a dance at Cherish School and she'd like you to be her date. Jericho's eyes widened and the smile that filled his face let Alex know what his answer would be. Is the dean okay with that? The tall werewolf asked. He's already approved it. I just need to gather the students who will cause the least amount of trouble. So Boris and Torin are out, Jericho stated. Alex laughed. Definitely. We'll keep it small just to make sure things go okay. Good plan, Jericho replied. A smile of anticipation lit his face. Chapter 28. The next day, Nikki and Jays invited Alex and Ciale to their wing of the academy for breakfast. Little William insisted on sitting on Alex's knee at the table. Alex watched with a proud smile as the 2-year-old piled the eggs into his pancakes and took a bite. He eats just like you, Alex, Jays noted. Nikki laughed. Yes, he does. He refuses to eat pancakes without eggs because it's not the way Uncle Alex does it. Alex laughed. I'm glad I'm such a good influence. Alec likes eggs, William said with a huge smile that filled his big blue eyes. Yes, I do, Alex confirmed, taking a bit of his own pancake egg sandwich. It was a bit difficult eating around the toddler, but he would much rather have the little boy sitting on his lap than across the table where his chair was supposed to be. You're a good uncle, Ciale said from Alex's left. I'm not here for him as much as I should be, Alex told her. That's true, William said. Everyone laughed. Jay smiled at the pair. It's good to have you back here, he told Alex. This place was definitely missing something without you. Alex looked around at the dean's quarters that had been his second home at the academy. The pictures on the wall showed him and Cassie as they grew. Photographs of little William as a baby and shots of the academy as it was built were framed in different colors. One picture caught Alex's attention. It was of a house on a little street. He recognized it as the house Jays had shown him where he and his mom had moved next to Nikki's family. He smiled at the thought of Jays close to his age moving unknowingly next to a house of hostile hunters. It's good to be here, Alex said. Thank you for having us. Yes, Ciale told them. This breakfast is wonderful. Nikki gave her a warm smile. Thank you. We love to have the company. So about the prom, Jay said, bringing them back to the topic at hand. Do you have a list of students you think should attend? Alex handed over the paper he and Trent had worked on. I thought 11. Werewolves would be enough. I didn't want the school to feel like we were overwhelming them, but strength in numbers is smart also, considering that we don't exactly know what we're getting into. Jays nodded. Good thinking. He scanned the list. I think you've chosen well. We're worried about the rest of the students feeling left out, Nikki told them. We wouldn't want to foster jealousy or anger on the side of those who can't go. What if we hold a prom here too? Ciale suggested. That way all the students can have fun. That's a great idea, Nikki replied. Everyone had a great time at the last dance. I think that's the perfect solution. We can announce it at lunch. Another dance? Jay said with a hint of trepidation in his voice. Oh, come on, Nikki encouraged. You know you love the decorations, the flowers, the dresses and tuxedos. I really don't, Jay said. Nikki laughed. I know. I just like to tease you. Jays tucked a strand of her long black hair behind her ear. And that's why I love you. He gave her a kiss. Nikki gave Alex and Ciale an apologetic smile when Jay sat back. Sorry you guys. You don't have to apologize, Ciale told her. Love is the reason we do any of this. Her hand slipped beneath the table and took Alex's. He smiled at her. If we can help werewolves live in peace with humans, maybe both races can live happier lives together without being afraid of what could happen. Jay smiled at both of them. You two really are making a difference. Alex shrugged. I learned from the best. Nikki announced the plan for the prom at lunch. Soon the entire school was caught up in plans for the dance, dresses, tuxedos, colors, and decorations. It turned out that Jericho's mother was a seamstress. She offered to come measure the students for their clothes and order them to save trips to a tailor. When Wednesday arrived, Alex attempted to dress in his tuxedo. He finally gave up and found Trent trying to brush his buzzed hair. It looks the same, Alex said. Yeah, Trent replied. I guess it's hopeless. At least you know Jordan likes it that way. That brought a smile to Trent's face. I'm not quite sure what to do about these, Alex said, handing the small silver and black items to Trent. They're cufflinks, Trent replied. Why didn't mine come with cufflinks? He helped Alex fasten them through the buttonholes at his wrists. Because the less complicated a tuxedo is, the better? Alex asked as he struggled to tie the bow tie. Seriously, this is ridiculous. Let me, Trent told him. Alex felt silly standing there as his best friend tied his tie. I don't think I've ever seen you this nervous, Trent noted. I can fight extremists and SAA gangs, but give me a dance and I can't get Anything to go right, Alex replied. The small werewolf gave him a sympathetic smile. Everything's going to be just fine. Trent, I'm taking a dozen werewolf students to a human high school. 1,000 things could go wrong. Trent cracked a smile. Yeah, they could. But 1,000 things could also go right. You just have to look at it as a cup half full situation. Alex shook his head. I'm thinking of it as I'm possibly leading my friends into a gigantic trap. What if the prom is a setup? What if the SAA gangs choose to seek their revenge against me and students pay for it? What if? Calm down, Trent said. He put a hand on Alex's shoulder and gave him a serious look. We've already scoped out the school. The black team is in position and Jay's pack will be chaperoning in case things go wrong. We already know the Grayton City Police Department will be out in force to protect the students against the SAA and protesters. The drone is overhead and we'll have the helicopter nearby in case of an emergency evacuation. It's going to be fine. Trent smiled at his friend. You have to stop carrying the fate of the world on your shoulders. If something goes wrong, it's not your fault. If something goes right, he grinned. Well, that's not your fault either. You just have to let things flow where they will. Go with it. Stop trying to control it. Alex let out a slow breath and nodded. Thanks, oh wise one. Trent chuckled. I'm always ready with sage advice. That's what I appreciate about you, Alex told him. Trent opened the door and they walked down the hall. Students already dressed or getting dressed filled the stairs. Oh, seriously? Trent complained when Torin, wearing only pants, shoved past him. Why are you so sweaty? Just worked out, Torin called over his shoulder. I want to look buff in my tux. If you can get it on, Trent muttered, wiping his face. I bet he rips it while he's dancing with Shannon, Cassie said, catching up to them, wearing a flowing dark blue dress that matched her eyes. Alex paused mid-step. Shannon? Torin is going with Shannon Styles, the termer. Yeah, crazy, huh? Trent said. You missed a lot while you were gone. How about Boris? Alex asked, daring to hope that Kalia's brother would find someone to distract the alpha from trying to kill him. No go, Cassie replied with a shake of her head. He's too angry to notice anyone. That was tactful, Tennyson said from behind her. He was dressed in a black tuxedo with a blue vest that matched Cassie's dress. Cassie gave her brother an apologetic smile. Sorry, Alex. You might have made an enemy for life. Tell me about it, Alex muttered. He spotted Boris standing at the bottom of the stairs, watching the gleeful students with a look of pure hatred on his face as they hurried around him. The termer alpha was wearing a pair of ripped jeans and a shirt that said Doom. Alex wondered if Boris had chosen the shirt on purpose or if it was just an ironic coincidence. Maybe I'll go another way, Alex said, hesitating. What, out the window? Trent guessed. That's quite the drop. You could ruin your tux. Better than what Boris will do to it, Alex replied. Don't be afraid of him, Cassie said. Their halt on the stairs caused a roadblock in the flow of students. Several muttered about inconsiderate werewolves as they pushed around them. Alex lowered his voice so only his friends could hear. I'm not afraid of Boris. He has a right to be upset. He took a calming breath and admitted, I'm a bit nervous as to what to expect tonight at the school, and with all the adrenaline, I'm worried that anything else is going to set me off. Trent's eyes widened. You mean rage mode? At Alex's nod, the small werewolf began to push past students back up the stairs. Clear a path, people. Alex is coming through. Seriously, get out of the way. Alex chuckled at his friend's panic. He was about to follow Trent back up when the door to Pac Jericho's quarters opened. Ciale stepped out, her gaze downcast with self-consciousness as she pulled the door shut behind her. Alex's breath caught at the sight of her in the lavender dress edged in gray silk. Her wavy brown hair was caught up in a matching gray silk ribbon. A few strands had been left free to curl down to her shoulders. The dress itself was low at the shoulders, slim around her waist, and flowed out below her hips. The effect was captivating. Alex, are you coming? Trent asked, surprised at his friend's lack of progress. He followed Alex's gaze to Ciale. A laugh came from him that was cut off when Jordan stepped out from Pac Maliki's quarters. Oh man, he breathed. Jordan looked even more self-conscious than Ciale in her flowing green dress. She had a green flower in her spiky red hair that set off her eyes. I think I'm not going to be able to make it tonight, Trent said. He turned to dart back down the stairs. Alex caught his arm. What are you talking about? Trent gestured back toward Jordan without looking at her. I'm not worthy to take someone who looks like that to the dance. Look at me. I'm a nerd who just pretends to be cool enough to hang out with you. Alex stared at his friend. Is that what you think? He could feel Ciale's eyes on him from above but kept his attention on Trent. Trent, listen to me. Without you I would have been killed, lost, or gone crazy more times than I can count. You're the only reason I'm still here. Trent shook his head. Alex kept his grip on his friend's arm to keep him from running away. Trent, will you look at me? The little werewolf finally did. Alex was stunned to see the tears in his friend's eyes. What is going on? He asked quietly. Trent scuffed a shoe on the carpet of the stairs, oblivious of the students who hurried past them. Do you really believe all those things? The werewolf asked almost too quietly for even Alex's keen ears to hear. Alex let out a breath. Yes, he said, his words earnest. Of course. Trent, you have been the very best friend a person could ever hope for. You built me a motorcycle, for crying out loud. That's amazing. Who does that? He ducked his head to meet the werewolf's eyes. You deserve someone incredible because you're incredible. You got that. A small smile touched Trent's face and he wiped his eyes. You sure? I'm positive, Alex answered. Now let's go give our girls the men they deserve. Trent and Alex walked side by side up the stairs to the girls who waited for them. Ciale gave Alex a tight hug. That was so sweet, she whispered in his ear so Trent couldn't hear him. You're a wonderful person. Don't tell anyone, Alex whispered back. She gave him a warm smile and slipped her hand into the crook of his elbow. Trent grinned at Alex as he escorted Jordan down the stairs next to them. Tonight is going to be a great night, the little werewolf said. Yes, it is, Alex agreed.